Oh, hello there. This afternoon we'll be taking a journey across the Romanesque period, beginning from approximately 10,000 AD to the introduction of the Gothic styles, taking place around 12,000 AD. Europe at this time was a divided land, not only in terms of politics but in development as well. As a result, some regional areas exhibited Romanesque-style art and architecture much longer than others, thus prolonging the overall period to intertwine with the Gothic periods of art. In fact, one of our stops on this journey included a church that was later modified to include some Gothic-style additions to the building. The first stop in this guide is the Bayeux Tapestries, a long stretch of embroidered cloth that details the events of the Norman conquest of England and the Battle of Hastings.
The Bayeux Tapestries depict the events preluding the Norman conquest of England by William the Conqueror and the subsequent Battle of Hastings. It is unknown who the artists were, but a work of art this size would have required many technicians and artists as well as a general designer to organize the piece. As this is considered an embroidery and not a true tapestry, it can be inferred that women made up the majority of artists and technicians who labored over this, as embroidery was a common art among women at this time. This great artwork is a crucial stopping point in any pilgrimage, as it showcases in glorious embroidery the invasion of Normandy of England by William the Conqueror.
Yes. A marvelous sight indeed. For those interested in military history, this is a must-see. It is believed to have been made a few mere years after the events depicted in this tapestry, making it a vital primary source of information for these events. This is a valuable stop for travelers of this area. We now move on to our next location, into the city of Augsburg, Germany, to the Augsburg Cathedral, where we will gaze upon their first work of art from this area, their beautiful bronze doors.
These 11th century doors spark interest in those who see it with their unusual subject matter of both pagan and Christian iconography, including Old Testament scenes of the creation of Eve as she meets Adam, the serpent in the Garden of Eden, Moses transforming his rod into a serpent, and Samson as he tames a lion and kills the Philistines. Some New Testament iconography include predecessors of Jesus Christ, such as Moses, Aaron, and David. Pagan images include lions, bears, and most notably, centaurs.
This would be an excellent stop on any pilgrimage, as it shows the religious nature of the Romanesque art, and a wonderful example of how many works of art were inspired by the past, most notably in its direct comparison to the Benoit doors of St. Michael's Hildesheim, highlighting the influence of Anglo-Saxon metalwork in this time period. Also included in the Augsburg Cathedral are examples of stained glass windows in the early days of the development. The way the marvelous stained glass sparkles in the sunlight is an ethereal sight for a weary traveler.
Although most notable in Gothic architecture, the craft of making stained glass windows began as early as the 7th century. The stained glass windows in the Augsburg Cathedral include depictions of the prophets David, Jonah, Daniel, Moses, and Hosea. This image depicts the prophet Daniel holding a scroll and wearing what appears to be a kettle hat, commonly seen on soldiers, which could possibly reference the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Stained glass windows were commonly used in churches, as literacy was not a common feature of the people of this time period.
The stained glass windows at Augsburg Cathedral are a beneficial stop for a pilgrimage, as it shows the windows at the dawn of their popularity in architecture during the Romanesque time period. A pilgrim traveling along this route would experience what many pilgrims will experience by basking in the light of the windows in their dazzling yellows and blues, as if they were touched by heaven itself. The Augsburg Cathedral later renovated and fitted with Gothic elements such as an Eastern choir, thus making it a smorgasbord of architectural styles. Our next stop is the Abbey of the Holy Trinity, built in 11th century Normandy, now located in modern Marche, France. It is an important feature of Romanesque architecture due to its early use of high rib vaults throughout the church.
The abbey was confirmed in 1080 by William the Conqueror, one of the many buildings made during his rule. It follows the Benedictine plan in the form of a Latin cross commonly seen in many abbeys. The interior has high vaulted ceilings and Roman arches, exemplifying its Romanesque style. As it is an abbey, it is not typically open for religious services, unlike churches like the Church of Sainte Foy, who offer services to pilgrims who travel to see the reliquaries stored in the church. An abbey is a building that houses a community of monks or nuns who dedicate themselves to a life of celibacy and religious seclusion. They are governed by an abbot or abbess. What makes the abbey a beneficial stop is that it contrasts churches like the Church of Sainte Foy that most people think of for the Romanesque era.
This next piece is a colorful manuscript featuring a triplet many know from Christmas. Yes, you guessed it. Everyone's favorite holiday boys, three magi.
This image depicts the scene of the three magi as they see the Holy Spirit and make their way to the birth of Jesus Christ. These manuscripts feature influence by Byzantine art as well as geometric designs of Islamic art. However, within Romanesque art, there are no restrictions for the depiction of human figures as seen in Islamic art. Also seen is a disregard for the accurate anatomy in favor of a more stylized image. In the miniature, their heads are larger than a normal head should be, and the men are riding on relatively small horses, which could not naturally support these large men. This illustration comes from St. Albans Palaster, a lavish illuminated manuscript that features over 40 full-page miniatures that was created for or at St. Albans Abbey in the 12th century. This is a recommended stop on this pilgrimage, as its source, the St. Albans Palaster, is heralded as one of the most important examples of English Romanesque book production. The next item on the guide is a Gloucester candlestick made in the early 12th century. The candlestick is ornately decorated with numerous human figures, apes, and beasts entangled together. 3 dragons with open wings make up the supporting feet. The style of the figures is reminiscent of English illuminated manuscripts, suggesting that it is made in England. Some figures can be seen covering their hands over the mouths of one another, suggesting a theme of silence and speech. This is mottled with clay and then casted with the lost wax method, another tribute to antiquity. The beautiful intricacies of the whimsical metal figures woven together is what makes the Gloucester candlestick an admirable stop on this journey. Our final stop takes us to Burgundy, France, to the Vézelay Abbey. Constructed between 1120 and 1132, the central tympanum at Vézelay features a scene that has baffled many. At first glance, one would assume it was Christ the Judge atop his throne ready to bring about the Last Judgment. However, it can also be interpreted as Christ the Holy Spirit blessing his disciples with a heavenly grace in the Pentecost. However, it actually depicts both the Pentecost and the Last Judgment. Its main literary source is Acts 1:4-9, in which he prophesied to his disciples before he ascended that they would receive the power of the Holy Spirit and be his witness unto the uttermost part of the earth. Therefore, this scene depicts both Christ the Judge and Christ the Holy Spirit, in which the apostles witnessed both the Pentecost and the Last Judgment simultaneously through Christ's prophecy. Because of the strangeness of this tympanum and the contrast to the typical scenes of the Last Judgment, the central tympanum at Vézelay is a valuable stop for any pilgrim, and a wonderful capstone for the tour of this smorgasbord stylistic period.
And so, thus concludes the travel guide of the Romanesque time period.